Okay, now we have to discuss transport of gases. We did discuss about exchange of gases. Now the next is that how the gases which were exchanged to the blood which carries the desired gases from one place to another, how they would be transported from one place to another. Supposedly I am talking about oxygen, it would be taken up from the lungs and it would be transported to the tissue in the deficit of oxygen. So how that transport takes place? What is the agency by which it would be transported? Needless to say, it would be by blood itself, and we will take each gas individually because we are going to deal primarily with oxygen and carbon dioxide. So first of all, we will discuss about the transport of oxygen. Now you know that oxygen is to be transported to the cells which are in need of the gas, because it is important for the process of cellular respiration. So the oxygen is taken up from the lungs by the arteries, the blood becomes oxygenated, then that oxygenated blood goes to the tissues where the oxygen is given to the tissues, and from there the carbon dioxide is taken up. So we deal with transport of oxygen from the lungs in the blood to the tissues where it is required. Now you know that blood has two components, one is plasma and other is the formed elements, which are the cells basically, and the cells which are responsible for transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide are RBCs, red blood cells. Okay, the red blood cells of our blood do not have a nucleus, they just get rid of their nucleus. What they have is the hemoglobin. Now hemoglobin is a colored pigment, that is again a protein, that is a globin molecule which has heme group attached to it. There are two alpha and two beta chains which are present, and this hemoglobin's composition or its formation, that it is such that it allows the oxygen in the given partial pressure condition to bind with it. Alright, now this binding takes place, and when hemoglobin binds with oxygen, it forms oxyhemoglobin, that is represented by HbO2. Now you need to know, and you will be surprised to know, that in this hemoglobin almost 97% of the oxygen is transported by this method. When the oxygen, that is the oxygen gas, molecular oxygen, it combines with the hemoglobin present in the RBCs, and as much as 97% of oxygen is transported by this mechanism, by this method rather, I would say, not the mechanism, this method, in the form of oxyhemoglobin, 97% of the oxygen would be taken up. Now the next remaining 3% would be taken from the lungs to the tissues which are working in the dissolved state, of oxygen itself, by plasma. So 97% by RBCs and the remaining 3% by blood plasma. This is the way the oxygen gets transported. Now what you have to pay attention towards is, because this is quite less and quite simple, that oxygen would be dissolved in the plasma itself in the form of gaseous oxygen itself, and it would be transported to wherever it is required. What is of our concern is oxyhemoglobin. Now you need to know that per 100 milliliter of blood, many times you in your common language and common rapport, you say that how much blood you are having, and you say that it is 14 grams or 12 grams. It is basically referring to hemoglobin. So per 100 ml of blood, what we have is, approximate individual has 15 grams of hemoglobin that is present per 100 milliliter of blood. There is 15 grams of hemoglobin. It could vary from 12 to 15 in a normal healthy individual. Now each gram of hemoglobin has the capability of carrying 1.34 milliliter of oxygen. Alright, so we have 15 grams of hemoglobin in 100 milliliter of blood. Each gram of hemoglobin is able to carry 1.34, approximate 1.5 milliliter of oxygen that could be carried by each gram of hemoglobin. So approximately what we have is that 100 milliliter of blood will be able to carry, if in exact terms it would be 19.4 milliliter, or it would be 20 milliliter to be very precise. So 100 milliliter of blood carries 20 milliliter of oxygen along with it in the form of oxyhemoglobin. Now when this oxyhemoglobin or this blood which is oxygenated, it reaches the tissue, the partial pressure of oxygen is very less in the tissues and the exchange of gas takes place, and what happens is as much as 5 milliliter of blood is transported or exchanged within the tissues. So the 100 milliliter of blood is capable of carrying 5 milliliter of oxygen to the tissues. Now when the tissues are under oxygen stress, that is they do not have much oxygen, or they are doing cellular respiration at a quite rapid rate, what they require is, if there is a condition when they need the partial pressure decline so much that 4.4 milliliter of oxygen is present per 100 milliliter of blood at the site, that is tissues. Okay. Now at tissues this would be the condition, they are in lot of oxygen stress. Now as much as 20 milliliter of blood comes, 20 milliliter of oxygen, sorry to say, 20 milliliter of oxygen comes to the tissues where it is exchanged, and the tissues they take up as much as 5 milliliter of blood. So per 100 milliliter of blood we have 5 milliliter of oxygen, pardon me again, it's not blood, it is 5 milliliter of oxygen which is transported per 100 milliliter of blood because of its binding with hemoglobin, and the remaining would 3% would be carried out by plasma. Now what you have to remember, a few things you have to remember is that there is oxygen tension which is responsible for this transport. Now what is oxygen tension? It depends on the partial pressure of oxygen. We have discussed a lot about the role of partial pressures in the exchange of gases and their transport henceforth. So what is oxygen tension? It is the amount of oxygen. This oxygen tension is the stress that has been created, and it determines what amount of oxygen can bind with hemoglobin. And you have to remember one thing, that hemoglobin reaches its 95% saturation. As much as 95% of hemoglobin molecules, if they form oxyhemoglobin, there would be no more binding of oxygen with hemoglobin, because the hemoglobin would attain a saturation over there, and that saturation comes at 95% of the formation of oxyhemoglobin. And the binding of oxygen, which is depending upon oxygen partial pressure of the oxygen, that is represented like this. This is determining how much, at what partial pressure, how much saturation would take place, and that gives us oxygen dissociation curve. Okay. Now this oxygen dissociation curve gives us that at what level the saturation comes and at what level the hemoglobin binds maximum, what would be the least binding of oxygen. Now supposedly this shows saturation percentage. Our y-axis is showing saturation percentage, and the x-axis represents partial pressure of oxygen. So what happens is we receive what we get in this phenomena is a sigmoid curve, and what we have over here is that after 95% of saturation there is no further binding. That means there is a condition when the saturation has been achieved, and at that partial pressure could be any, the maximum would be the partial pressure, that would be the oxygen tension, that partial pressure at which the hemoglobin achieves its saturation. So this point represents the saturation, and that would not be beyond 95%. This is the partial pressure of oxygen. Now at around partial pressure of 30, that is partial pressure of 30, PO2, when PO2 is 30, the hemoglobin saturation is 50%. Half of the hemoglobin has saturated. That means oxygen binding of oxygen binding with hemoglobin has taken place up to 50%. That means 50% of the hemoglobin has been used up by binding with oxygen, and this is known as P50, that partial pressure which at which the saturation is 50%, that is known as P50, and this is represented by a value of 30. When the partial pressure of oxygen is 30, the saturation is 50%. So this represents the oxygen dissociation curve, which is in a way representation of how the binding of hemoglobin with oxygen takes place. You might be thinking that why I am not paying much attention to the dissolved state as much as I have paid to the hemoglobin, because 3% hardly matters when we have the other one doing the transport as much as 97%. And you have to remember this 97% component, that is the hemoglobin, it depends on certain factors, out of which the most important factor is the partial pressure of oxygen in the gases. That partial pressure is responsible for the binding of oxygen with hemoglobin. More would be the partial pressure, more would be the binding. Apart from the partial pressure, this binding also depends upon the pH, and which could be acidic or it could be basic, and it depends on temperature. Though these two impact this oxygen dissociation curve a little bit, but they do not have that much regulatory role as much as the partial pressure of oxygen is there. So you know that whenever carbon dioxide is present, more carbon dioxide is present, so the pH would be less acidic, because pH would be less in numerical value, because carbon dioxide is acidic, so the pH would be more acidic, right, because the value would be lesser than 7 and it would be declining numerically. So when the pH is lesser, that means that the concentration of carbon dioxide would be high, or the H positive concentration would be higher. So these conditions do not favor the binding of hemoglobin with oxygen. First thing you have to remember, that the higher concentration or the higher partial pressure of carbon dioxide does not favor this. Alright. The second thing that we have in our consideration is more would be the protons presence over there, that is more H ions if they are present. Then again the oxygen binding would be lesser, because these two conditions are not favorable. And secondly, you have to remember that the temperature, if the temperature is lesser, then it favors the binding of oxygen with the hemoglobin. So these are the few conditions, and we study this particular perspective of oxygen dissociation curve and how it varies according to the conditions which are present. In terms of Bohr effect, that we have this curve slightly shifting towards the right, or it could be shifting towards the left condition. Now we would discuss that in Bohr's effect, but for that we need not to consider this transport of gases. What we are primarily considering over here and we are concerned about is the transport of oxygen, which takes place in the form of oxyhemoglobin and in the dissolved state. Now how much transport of oxygen takes place is, it takes place around 20 milliliter of oxygen would be carried per 100 milliliter, and need not to say that it's only 5 milliliter of the oxygen which would be transported to the tissues. Remaining of the oxygen would stay in itself because of the partial pressure differences. It is only the 5 milliliter of oxygen that would be actually delivered to the tissues which are in deficit of oxygen.